Yes, I am now recording. Thank you. Otherwise, I would have forgot. My brain's going about 100 miles an hour this morning. Okay, the U.S. dollar right now is strong. I would be watching that because if it gets up, of course, to the 50 area, we could see a retracement. Now, the reason I say watch that, because if you see the Swiss franc and the euro U.S. dollar, you can see that both of them are beginning to be oversold. Okay, so those are things I'm watching today. And I wanted to show you one of the trades that I was in. I gave myself a lot of time on this trade. You see on the 180, do you see how the euro is at, well, the ADX is at 87.3? So I think we're going to have a magenta peak, and I think it will pull back to this ATR around 80.97 as it stands right now. I gave myself until tonight at 11 o'clock for that to occur. Does everybody understand that? And I got that binary really cheap. Um, Hold on a minute and I'll tell you what I got it at. I got that binary at $27. Can everybody hear me? Please? Yes, maybe. Okay. I got this binary on the Euro British pound for 27 bucks. That means if it does what I think it will and it goes up to 80.80, then potentially I can make at least 3 times what my investment was. Does everybody understand that? And if I lose, the maximum I can lose is 27 bucks. And if I see, well, it's just not going to get there, I could always exit early as well. Okay, another one that I did is on the USD Swiss franc, and you can see everything is just moving up, and we don't really have any extended values that are overbought on any of these charts. So my presumption is it will at least get to 90.20. That particular trade cost me $16. Okay, and that's per contract, guys. Does everybody understand that? To me, and again, it has until 11 p.m. tonight to do that. So even if we do get a retracement, it could still do what I want it to do before 11 o'clock tonight. I just gave myself time on that one. I know pretty much what will happen, so I just need to give it time, let it happen. Okay? Now, where did I enter? It was at 5 o'clock this morning. So it was on this bar. In between this bar and this bar. And this was just saying, yeah, it's probably going to go up. We have ATR up here at 90.23. And I actually anticipate it to go up there at least and test that. Dan, and then tomorrow we'll probably get a downturn. That would be my presumption, Dan. The USD Swiss franc doesn't move very fast. So normally you can actually do that on the Swiss franc. All right, let's go over and let's start with the ES this morning. On the blog, I did write that I think this 1943 area is going to be a very important area on the ES today. And the reason is if price comes down and touches this, we're going to get a magenta peak on the 1440 and on the 720. Okay, and over here on the 180, the ATR is at 1944.5. So it's within what, a point and a half of this area. So I think this line is actually going to be a very important area today. And I would really be watching it on the ES to see what happens. Okay, because we have an overextended ADX on the 1440. The 720 is not overextended, okay? It just so happens that if we get a magenta peak, it's going to occur on both time frames. Do y'all understand that? Okay. Gig, I can't remember if I responded to you, but I did fix the issue that you were having. I reset your password for you. Okay. All right, let's go look at the NASDAQ. NASDAQ, we have had the magenta peak already come in on the 720, so that should push price down. What would prevent price from going down? The 180, because you do have an ATR here at 3784.5. That will need to be flipped, okay? They need to exceed this. If it supports price, you will not get the retracement. Now, if you do get the retracement, it's going to kick in a magenta peak on the daily as well. Does everybody understand that one? Okay, let's go over and look at the DAX. I do trade the DAX a lot on the binary options side. And, you know, this one is saying up. This is saying up. This one, we could actually see a 50% retracement of the wide bar. If we see the 50% retracement of the wide bar, we're also going to get a magenta peak that will push price down to the ATR. Does everybody understand that one as well? And this is the one you need to watch, because if they decide to retrace that wide bar, is going to kick in that magenta peak, you're going to use your 12-minute for a Buddha entry. Or I would use it to identify a Buddha, and I would trade it on the binary options. And normally on those I would do an hourly. I would need to buy time like I did on the Euro British Pound and the USD Swiss franc. Okay. Now let's go over to gold this morning. We are still having this retracement that is taking place from this magenta peak. It's coming back to the ATR over here. Do y'all see that? What is preventing it from going back to the ATR right now? Your 720. We've had that bounce down from the ATR, and we could see it actually take out the ATR this morning, okay? The 180-minute chart is showing you that the ATR is supporting price to increase. The one thing that is standing in the way of a good trade is the ATR right here on the 45-minute. It needs to flip that ATR back to be in blue. Does everybody understand that? If that occurs, I would be looking for longs. Very simple. But, you know, remember, you do have an ATR up here at 65.3. So it could hit this ATR and then bounce down. We do have the U.S. opening at 9:30. Normally, the U.S. Open, we get real volatile movement, okay? I do not suggest that anybody trade the U.S. Open in the futures. I do it on the binary options if I can get a good price, okay? I'm always, I call myself a bargain shopper, and I'm always looking for bargains on that side, okay? Any questions on gold? You do see on the market analyzer, you're seeing a lot of magenta on both the 12 and the 45. That is typical on trending days. Just be careful for these that are over 70, or like on the 12-minute Euro USD, you have a value of 70. That's telling me it's oversold at the moment on the euro US dollar, because I know it's been moving down. Let's see any other values that, not really. These that are like 68, 68.22, this tells me I might just want to take one clipper level if I go in those. The British pound is at 74, okay? So that is oversold. Just looking at the meter, it would be an oversold area, because I imagine that the British pound has been going down, looking at the meter. Yep. Now this is a flat magenta peak, which normally indicates that this low will be tested. Okay. Let's go look at this one. And let me link that one. There. So these are the ones that I tend to worry about because they are oversold. This is not oversold. So you could see a pullback to the ATR and then a retest of the low. Does everybody understand that one? If this makes a magenta peak, Dan, all right, we're going to get a magenta peak because it's at 72. We already know that it is, in fact, oversold, okay? If we get the magenta peak, it's going to pull back to the ATR, which is at 67.86. So let me put a line on that because that way you can see it a little better. Now, that's 67.86. Let's put that same line over here on the 45 minute. Okay? That's just about there, right? Are you with me so far? Now, if it works out perfectly like that and it retraces all the way back to 67.86, that may bring in a magenta peak down here. But we also know that this is going to move down with price, right? And on a 12 minute, it's going to move down fairly quickly. So let's say that this moves down to 80. Will that bring in a magenta peak? No. If it does not bring in the magenta peak, more likely than not, this low will be retested. Now, do you understand? That's also called basically the free money trade. So do you understand it now, Dan? And the one really neat thing on the binaries, one of the reasons that I trade the binaries, a client sent me an email yesterday and he said he's getting stopped out, and then of course price continues on its path. Would the binaries help? Yes, they will help. You don't have to be so exact in a binary is what you do on the futures. Okay? Yeah, there's no buyers in there. That was the same thing that the DAX was telling me this morning too, Grant. I mean, every time you had a price make a high, sellers stepped in and controlled that delta. That's why I use Ninja Traders so much, because you can see when the buyers are being controlled by the sellers. That was a good pickup, Grant. And that's the one thing I was watching on the DAX this morning, because I had the ability to capture a higher reward on the DAX, and sellers were just saying, hey, there's no sellers in there right now. So does everybody understand that one? Now, the really neat thing about the market analyzer in NinjaTrader is that every time a peak comes up, it makes a really, really shrill sound. It definitely catches your attention. So you can just have this open throughout the day. You do have to limit the number of market analyzers that you have open, because trading this many time frames, having the meter window in the market analyzer, is going to take a lot of memory. Okay. They are working, I think over the summer they're going to release a new version of NinjaTrader. So we won't have that issue. But right now, I do suggest that you limit the market analyzers. Yes, you can have a market analyzer in Ninja. We program the indicators to work, Bonnie. Um, I think I've upped mine to, let's see, this one, I've got 3 computers, so give me a minute. I think this one has 16 megs, Bonnie. But NinjaTrader currently doesn't utilize the dual or quad processors, and I've got quad processors in my computer, so that hampers it a little bit. And then also there's an issue with the 2 gig of memory. So, I limit my market analyzers right now. Yeah. Well, I mean, I bought my computer about a year and a half ago, but I custom designed it from Falcon, and it really has the latest technology. Even today, they don't have anything that beats the one that I ordered. So I'm doing pretty good with the computer setup. But, it's like TradeStation. Anybody has TradeStation. It's not 64-bit. They say it uses quad processors. I'm not too sure about that. But they still have that 2 gig limit as well. So, a lot of these software platforms are just now becoming available where they can utilize more than 2 gigs of memory, and, we just have to wait for them to catch up. Now, what I tend to do, and exactly what I have open right now, I normally do not have the 1440 in the 720 open when I'm trading, because it just lowers my memory needs. So I know what all of the higher time frames is doing. Okay, so I can close these out, and then I'll set this up so y'all can see exactly what I'm doing when I'm trading during the day. Where are you? Here's my 12-minute, and I have my market analyzer right here. Okay, so this is kind of like in my face. Then I have the 3 and the 1. If I enter a binary, then I put up on another screen just, the charts for the binaries, so I can watch and see what the binaries are doing. Now, in both of these cases, I actually have binaries that expire at 8 p.m. tonight. So what I did is just mark a line. I snap a line on there showing me where the binary price is. Okay? And then I just pull it off, and normally it's up above. Well, right now I've got 6 main monitors, and then I have another 2 monitors that are on a laptop, because I'm running some of my extra software on a laptop for the blog and stuff. So it doesn't take up my processor for my trading computer. The green dashes, that is a new indicator that I had my programmer design for me, Dan, and it tells me where the expiration price should be. Based on the Nadix algorithm, I'm still testing that. But the way that they do their expirations, it's the last 25 prices, okay, or 25 ticks, and then they throw out the 5 highest and the 5 lowest. They average that, and that gives you the expiration price. So this one only works on the live edge. When I go into a trade, I actually status that off and then status it back on. And again, it just works on the live edge of the market. It doesn't work in hindsight. Gig, you're asking if you can customize your alert on the market analyzer. Unfortunately, not that I know of. We actually have to program every indicator for the market analyzer, and we have to program, I believe, the alerts into that as well. Well, it did this morning because I did post a trade this morning. And for those of you that are doing the Kickstart Your Trading webinar that starts next Monday, we're going to go in depth, but this is just kind of like a preview of it. Early this morning on the DAX, there was an expiration at 6 o'clock. And let me go back to that. Okay, the expiration at 10 o'clock, the only one that they were offering was, let me go back to the blog because I posted it there. It seems like it was 19, but I want to make sure. Yeah, and it wasn't on this one. It was actually on the 3-minute. Shows you the picture better. That's the one I captured this morning. Let me set this up for you. This was the expiration, and the only expiration price that was available was right here. And do you see how it would tick up, tick down, tick up, tick down, tick up, tick down? I would not touch that trade. 1 tick difference would be the difference between making money and losing money. Do y'all understand that? Yeah, if the green dash is under the binary level, you're fine. If you sold, okay? If you bought, you would want price to be above that dash. And, you know, this is a good example because it was actually, I think it was at 19.5, if I'm not mistaken, Dan. I can't remember, and I don't have it historical. I don't think it's in... No, it's not on the chart either. But to me, this was just a good example of 1 tick in either direction could have cost you or could have made you money. So I said, nope, I'll stay away from that. Well, not necessarily, Dan, and I'll tell you why. The one I did on the DAX this morning, I expected price to come up to 26. It was moving very slow. This one had an expiration of 7 o'clock, which was here. Okay, and make sure I have that right. It had to close at least there or above. Okay, if this was your expiration. Now, in this case, I knew that there was more power to the upside than it was to the downside. And even up to this bar right here, the most I had been down on this trade was actually $14 per contract. And I was watching it because I went into the binary and the strike was $42. Okay. That's what the strike price was, with the premium, I'm sorry. It was $42. The most it ever went against me was 15, actually, because I had set a mental stop of 20. I was going to let it go half against me, and then I was going to get out. It never did. No, I actually went to expiration, and it actually closed, I believe it was 27.5. Now, how many of you were in the room yesterday when Pam told you when you get an outside bar, all of her research proved that it was an 83% chance it will take out the high of that bar before it will take out the low? This is exactly the bar that she was talking about, guys. And it was funny because when I saw that bar, I was like, yeah, I got this. Because probability said that it would actually go up. Now, ironically, this is one where if you were just going by probabilities in the Nadex window, the probabilities up until this bar was actually against me. It was this outside bar here. It closed outside of the high and low of this bar, Bonnie. There's an 83% chance that this high would be taken out. That high was at 24.5. And I knew I still had another 20 minutes, and more likely than not is what I like to term, it was going to go up and touch at least where I wanted it to touch, which was 126.5. Now, that's a lot to be going through your mind, and it takes experience to build up what I would call that thinking pattern that simultaneously as you're watching the bars. Okay. Now, some of you may think, well, the sellers came in strong here. Not really. They came in strong, but they didn't go nowhere, right? What did that tell me? It's probably going to go up higher. Does everybody understand that? Okay. Or are there any futures that y'all want to look at that we have not looked at? I'll be more than happy to look at them. Crude and the Russell. Okay. Well, crude has a possibility of coming down and testing this ATR here. You need to watch the ATR here because it does need to flip from being blue to red. I would actually be looking at the 12-minute to take a crude trade, Chris, because I would want it to flip this ATR. Okay, that means that the ATR would come up here above price. I would want to see a test of that ATR on diverging volume, and then I would take a position to the short side. Any questions on that one, Chris? All right, the next one is the Russell. I don't trade the Russell because it doesn't really move 24 hours a day. Most of the other markets do. So you see that we had a magenta peak here. It has retraced back to the ATR being at 1166.6. The lowest point of this bar was 1168.9. To me, that would be close enough. I would be watching the 45-minute to actually see if this congestion dot holds, because normally what we will see, and you see that you do have divergence here and divergence here because it came down and tested it. So I would at least anticipate it coming up to 1172.3 to test that ATR. Yes, it does, Dan. It's taken a while to get used to that. You know, and we'll go over this a lot in the webinar next week, Dan. Somebody on Twitter, I've been posting a lot on Twitter about the binary options, and the guy came out and said, well, options are easy to trade. I said, well, it depends on the trader, and binaries are different from other options, okay? The one thing about the binaries, if you're waiting until later to get into the binary, and again, the DAX was a great example of that this morning. Let's go back to the DAX and let's go back and look at the one that expired at 6 o'clock this morning. So the only option price that I had available to me was 119. That's it. You didn't have any other options that had already been taken. Okay? If, for example, it had come back to let's say it had come down to about 10.15 and there was still a potential to make $15 or $20 per contract, I would have taken it right before expiration. Why would I have done that? Because I know the DAX and it's not going to move 4 points in 3 or 4 minutes. Okay? It's just not going to do that. So the probabilities are that it will close beneath that line. Do you understand that, Dan? That's trading pure probabilities. Now, I do like to see the option confirming that. In other words, I want to see that the buyers rejected the price. Okay, they were divergent. They were not interested in coming in and buying the market. You didn't have outside bars that said it's going to go up. Do you understand that, Dan? Now, those I'm going to take usually 10 minutes till. I have even done it at 5 minutes till, because you just know there's no way it's going to, be above or below that area. 2 minutes before expiration. Another trader, Robert. For every buyer, there must be a seller. And then, of course, when it expires, it just expires. Nadex does not take trades. They are an exchange. Does everybody in this room know what that means? They're not trading against you. That's what it means. How many of you have ever traded forex and you've heard about the dealing desk? Well, most of the binary brokers have a dealing desk or a trading desk, okay? So, you're trading, but they're trading too. And that just don't seem right to me. It didn't in forex. And I'll be honest, Dan, it really does take a while to get used to going with probabilities versus risk to reward. Okay. All right. I'm going to do this disclaimer here because if I say this, I don't want to get into trouble because it is based on what I have done, the way I trade. Does everybody understand that? Give me a second because there's no way I'm going to open my mouth and put my foot in my mouth until I post this in this trading room. Here we go. This is an educational room, and anything I say here is based on hypotheticals, okay? In my trading account, based on the way that I trade, in the last 2 weeks, I've only had one negative trade, okay? Now, that means that I can take a higher risk, lower reward trade. Does everybody understand that? That's also based on, I hope, the trades I have that expire at 11 p.m. tonight do not expire in the negative. I don't know. Okay? It's just based on as of this moment in time. Does that mean you can do it? I don't know. Do you have my experience and did you write my indicators? And that's, that sounds really harsh, but I want it to be really harsh because I don't want you to come and say, well, I can't do that. Well, every trader is made of their own personal beliefs, and it's the head junk that will keep you from making good trades. And it's also a matter of discipline. I had the discipline to bypass a trade that I knew may not work out in my favor because I wasn't seeing it in the chart. I was not seeing it in the volume. I was not seeing it in the price bars. Do you have that same discipline? I don't know because I don't know you unless you're a client. And most of my clients, I can actually tell you whether they can or can't. I do like being honest and upfront with everybody. Okay? You come into trading, don't expect to make $1,000,000. You slowly build your account. And if you realize that, you stand a better chance of making it and you deal with all the head junk. Yeah, as you build your skill, you can build your profit levels. And you really, in all honesty, you kind of walk through the mental junk that you have to deal with one step at a time. You can't take everything on. When I was really, really struggling as a trader, I would identify one thing that was preventing me from being successful and I would work on it. To find a binary trade, what do I focus on, like the 45 or the 12 minute, and are you primarily watching for magenta peaks? If I have high values in the ADX, I'm primarily looking gig for magenta peaks. Okay, then I zero down. If I see a magenta peak on the 12 minute, I'm looking at the 1 minute. If I see a magenta peak on the 45, then I'm looking at a 3 minute. Then the next step is calculating out, okay, is it 635 because it only gives you 25 minutes to get that profit target, okay? Now, during the U.S. session, can you do that? Oh, yeah, absolutely. U.S. session is the most volatile market. Could you do that during London this morning? Nope, you couldn't. You need about an hour for this to play out. And I'm always saying, okay, it's a 12-minute chart and I've got one full hour. Okay, so basically that's about 4 12-minute bars, right? And the 12 minute tells me I have to trade the 1 minute. On the 1 minute, that's 60 bars. And, I actually do all of this in my head. And that's the reason the trade this morning on the DAX that I did take for the retest of the high, even though it didn't make it to the high before expiration, I knew I had at least 45 one-minute bars, you know. I could have backed out of that trade. I got it cheap enough that I could have backed out of it with a decent loss versus the full 42 or 41 loss. It was either 41 or 42. Do you understand that, Gig? And these are things that I do automatically in my head, guys. You know, and this is a great example. Let's say that we had a magenta peak on the 12 minute, but we only had 11 minutes until expiration. Okay? Don't take that trade. Not unless you're in the U.S. session and the prices are really moving. Sometimes it's just dependent on which session you're trading. And remember, unlike other options, the binaries are 24 hours a day. Let me show you one. All right. And let's go back to here. This was the end of the session yesterday afternoon, okay? You see the dollar and the euro and the Swiss franc. Okay, the euro and Swiss franc was just about oversold. The dollar was, you know, really pretty high. It was about 10 points away from being overbought. And I was talking to someone and I said, you know, the dollar's going to fall and the euro and the Swiss franc are probably going to go up during the Asia session. Okay, there's a couple of reasons that I do this. Number one, this tells me the direction that the next session may go in. Then you have to come in and look at the session and say, okay, do I see the movement there? I'm trying to get back to where it was. Okay, so this is when it opened. And you see how gappy this chart is? But you could have actually, around 9:30 last night, knowing that it had formed a double bottom here, and if there was an expiration around 35.86, could you have taken that in Asia even though it wasn't moving? Absolutely. It just had to close above what your strike price was. Oh, we have a magenta peak on crude. Let's go to crude. I would, but I would wait for it to come back and test this ATR because that's your Buddha trade between the 12 and the 180, Larry. Let me pause my screen a minute. Okay, does everybody see my screen now? All right, so now this is a daily expiration of 2:30 p.m. We're expecting crude to go down to 103.99, right? So what prices are they offering that I would consider, hey, this is a good price? Let's see. Okay, the 104, that's going to be too close. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that right now. This one you can only make 27.50. If this goes up, you could potentially do it, but I wouldn't do it right now. The 104.50, you could actually sell that. It's going to cost you about $41 right now, but it gives you time. If it doesn't work out, you can back out of it. Do you understand that, Larry? Now, they do have one that expires at 10 a.m., okay? So you've got 104.73, 104.93, 105. This is the only one that you can do, so no, I wouldn't do the 10 o'clock. Do you understand? This is what you have to look at on the binaries. Just because you have an ATR doesn't mean you have an expiration there. You know, crude, it's 20 cents apart. So I don't take a lot of trades in crude on the binaries. Now that, and again, you have to watch it, Larry, because you can, yeah, it's what I call shopping. I'm looking for a bargain, okay? And you may get a better price. It may go up to 70, okay? This is where you're trading the leading edge of the ADX, telling you that price is coming down, okay? Now, at the 50 point, you're about right here. So it doesn't have to make it all the way down for you to be in profits. Do you understand, Larry? And that's also a 180-minute chart. And those prices are constantly in a state of change, okay? Constantly. And, you know, in the Kickstart Your Trading webinar, Larry, we're going to go over a lot of it. For those of you that are annual members, the link is up for you to register. Because we can get a better price now, Wepper, okay? Now remember, that is an expiration time of 2:30 this afternoon, okay? So let's analyze it just a little bit more, okay? Now, you see that you've got the magenta peak there, right? Even the worst case scenario at the market open, they'll come in, they might test 104.89, maybe 105, but then it's still going to come down, right? More likely than not, with a value of 69.47, it's going to come down. Okay, your price on the option of what you're getting is still probably going to be 104.5 either way. So could you get a better price? You know, with only $40 of risk, if you take $80 profit, you've doubled what your risk was, right? Yeah, you can do that one. You know, you just have to keep a watch on it. That's all. And it might be at the market opening, that might shoot up to 95. I've seen it happen. And then it will fall. If it does it at 95, your risk is $5. And you better believe if I can get it for $5, I'm in that sucker. Do you understand now, Wepper? That's the difference with the binaries. You don't necessarily have to wait. Okay? Yeah, yeah. Hey, $5 is a fire sale, okay? Think of it like that. This is a clearance because they're saying the probabilities are that it will not do that. The ADX is saying the probabilities are it will do that. I'll take the probabilities on the ADX because I know the ADX. Do you understand that? But I don't trade crude a lot. I get enough trades between the forex and the NASDAQ and the DAX that, it just comes to a point where you got to say, hey, I've got enough trades here. No, the better price will not occur then, Wepper, because you're at the money or in the money. So now you're going to pay a higher price because you waited for it to be at the money. We're getting it out of the money. And to do that, you do need to know the ADX indicators and setups very well. Excuse me. No, wait a minute. I think I told you wrong, Wepper. If you waited for this to come back to 104.74 and you took 104.50, you're still out of the money. I'm not sure what price you would get. You wouldn't get a 50-50 price, okay? 50-50, you're right at the mark. I'm getting the futures and the binaries confused at the moment. So do you understand now, Wepper? Right. Oh, thank you. Yeah, the ADX, the 12 minute would be at 104.83. Now, anywhere in this region, you could take it. Anywhere in that region. You're not going to get 50-50 as long as you're doing the 104.50. The dailies don't change as quickly as the hourlies do. For example, right now is at 58.50. Yeah, that's in the documentation, actually, Dan. Bright color ADX tells you that the ADX is above the trend threshold and increasing. Dark tells you either that the market is not trending or the ADX line is decreasing. Magenta tells you that the market is trending. Everything else is just patterns within the ADX. We will be going through that in the Kickstart Your Trading webinar. Most of my tests will kick your ass because it's applications, okay? An application is different from just reading something. That's the reason I did the test on the RSI. I went through every question on that test. Everybody should have scored 100%, but they didn't. Why? Because it's application of knowledge. Application of knowledge is very different. I was doing a course on Adobe, and I hate Adobe, by the way. Actually, I like it now, but I did hate it. It was very intimidating to me. And I did a course last year on Adobe Photoshop and Dreamweaver, which I actually already knew. but I did it on images because I want to be able to manipulate images for the website to make it a better graphic, blah, 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 blah. And I'll tell you right now, I was reading the book and I thought, yeah, I got this. And when I went to do it, it kicked my butt. You don't see it, they send it to me. If you put in your name and email address, it sends me your score, and it's very few people that have actually scored 100% on that. Very few people. Give me just a minute. I was bringing up the documentation. And there she went on crude. Okay. I'm trying to find the ADX guys, so give me a minute here. Oh, I'll just go back to the table of contents. Where are you, ADX? We have a lot of information within the documentation. Page 37. All right. And I do the documentation, and if I need to improve the documentation, then you'll need to let me know after you've read it. Okay? DMI positives, bright cyan. DMI positive is dominant in ADX's rising. Dark cyan, DMI positive is dominant, but the ADX is either below the threshold or decreasing. DMI negative, bright red, DMI negative is dominant in ADX's rising. Dark red, DMI negative is dominant, but ADX is either below the threshold or decreasing. Special note, in NinjaTrader, subsequent magenta peaks are plotted with a yellow dot. I tell you how to do the land in the sign. Yeah, a line in the sand. I can't talk today. I tell you how to do the line in the sand. Everything that I'm telling y'all in the room is actually in the documentation. Yes, I would reprint it, and I would actually take it, instead of reading through the entire manual at one time, take one indicator. I would start with the ADX, the trend version 2, the directional volume. Okay? I would take it step by step. Learn this indicator. Make flashcards. Okay? When you needed to learn something in college, what did you do? You made flashcards, you studied it. Trading is not really any different. Stuart, I would love for you to print it out and do what we were talking about this weekend with it. Then if you don't understand something, let me know. In fact, Stuart, I take that back. I'll send you the Word version. Dan, I've thought about creating a video manual to go with it. I had thought about doing that. I just haven't had time to do it. Stuart, I'll send you the Word document. Everybody learns differently. And I do like to present material in all the different ways that people learn because, for example, I have ADD and everything has to be presented to me in a very fast way. And it has to be on target. In other words, you can't do this and then jump over here and jump over here and jump over here. Focus on this, tell me, get it all out, and my mind absorbs it immediately. That's kind of what I figured, Mika. Yeah, I have real bad ADD. That's the reason I couldn't do regular options. They cannot hold my focus. They really can't. The binaries can. And, maybe that's why I do love the binaries so much is because of that. Most of the time I'm taking binaries between the top of the hour and 15 minutes after the hour because it gives me time to back out of it. By quarter till, either I'm out of it or I've decided to let it expire because it's deep in the money. In either case, I get up and take a break. I take a 15-minute break and then I come back and do it all over again. Mika, check your messages in the forum, please. And also, for those of you that have the gold, silver, platinum, or annual packages, we have the form for those of you that are just, you have questions about the indicators. We have a guest forum where we post questions there. So, the forum should be used. It is an excellent resource for y'all. I don't do the Word document, Cliff. I'll send it to you as a PDF, though. Just send me an email and I'll be happy to send it to you. Now, it is the latest update that I did. So if you don't have the latest update, it may not coincide with the version that you have. Okay, guys, any other questions? Because got to go trade, That's that's what I love to do. All right, if there's no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and close the room. We'll be back tomorrow morning, same time, same place. Hi, Humphrey. How are you doing? Well, we went over all of the markets early. I did record it.